Hey, Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my
Lunker leg dreams come true. Holy cow, here we go, everybody. Hello, Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, checking in with you from the balmy hills of North Texas. Chico, I'm not sure anybody's watching, but oh, look, we got one.
Yeah, you got three.
Yeah, look at there. Yeah, hey, hello, everybody. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, checking in with you right now, and we're going to spend a little time together. You'll never believe who I'm hanging out with. Chico, Chico Garcia, who hails from Seguin now.
Yep.
He spent quite a bit of his life around Austin and grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yep.
And our common bond is he loves to fish. And
Yes, I do.
Chico, you know what? Tell us.
And I'm a recent graduate of the Pond Boss Institute.
The Bob Lusk
Right.
Institute of Higher Pondology.
I did take the class.
Yes, he did. What do you think about that?
Well, I got to tell you, friends, if you get a chance, you really need to get in these classes. In fact, if you see anything coming out that Bob's doing, go and look at it.
It's really pretty fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we did one this fall. Chico came to the Pond Boss class at Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology in October of 2019 when we weren't contending with Corona with a twist of Lyme disease or whatever it is, you know. And so we did get to spend some time together. And actually, Chico's here for the next few days because we're going to be talking about some of the videos that we shot back then. We're talking about podcasts. You know, we're looking at some multimedia because there's just, you know, there seems to be enough interest out there that we want to expand our media presence. But tonight, we're going to talk to Chico about some things he's done, and we're going to entertain your questions. So, you know the drill. Hey, hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comments section. Chico's picking his phone up. He's doing it right now. Here comes Chico. He's going to do it right now, and you'll be able to see it.
Yeah.
And click like, and share this to your timeline, and you're eligible for a drawing for a, dig this, do they still say dig this?
They do. Yeah, people know what it means, but they don't say it.
A Pond Boss hat and a Pond Boss mug that I know Jacob West has got to be watching, that knows how to keep hot things hot and cold things cold. I don't know how it knows, but it knows how to keep hot things hot, cold things cold. So click like, share it to your timeline, hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comments section, and you're eligible for a drawing, which we'll try to do that right after the first of the year. We'll do the next drawing. So I'm gonna, you know what I do here? I'm looking at. I gotta turn off the noise. Oh, there it goes. Now that's off. So now, holy cow! Look at all these people. Good gosh, there's a gazillion questions already, Chico. John Funk's checking in from mid-Michigan. We got people from all over the nation that watch this show, which is really kind of funny to me. I mean, they're watching a 65-year-old gray-bearded pond guy talking head.
Dude, you're the man on this. You really are the guy.
Well, I've had a few things happen, you know. Yeah. And Chico, I'm going to scroll through this. Look at it. We got Tony Sutton checking in. Travis Paul Smith checking in from east of us. Travis is feeding fish, so he's kind of really bought into the fish feeding thing. He loves Purina Mills. He loves Texas Hunter Feeders, and those are two of our big sponsors. And, you know, it's kind of funny because I won't let anybody sponsor the show that I don't believe in. You know, we vet our sponsors. We vet our advertisers with Pond Boss Magazine. By the way, Pond Boss Magazine, $35 a year, Chico.
Yeah, it's a great deal.
$35 a year. Cheaper than a Friday night date and last a year, and that date's gone. Matter of fact, Debbie and I went out for our anniversary Monday night. 18 years, which we should have been married longer than that, but that's a story for another show. We shared a couple of bottles of wine with some friends of ours, and we did a carriage ride and looked at Christmas lights.
Wow.
That ain't got nothing to do with fish, but I can't believe I just admitted that. There's Blair Ulrich. He's got some property out near Poetry, Texas.
Poetry.
Yeah.
Used to be a neighbor of Ray Wiley Hubbard. Have you heard the story that Ray Wiley Hubbard tells about Poetry,
No,
Texas?
I want to hear it.
Well, he says there's not many poets in Poetry, Texas.
But there's some good fishing lakes.
Is that really?
Yeah, I was actually, you know what? One of my favorite things about what I do is I meet some of the coolest people on the planet. And there's a long time client of mine, a guy named Max Williams, who's got to be in his early 80s. And Max played basketball in Avoca, Texas in the 50s. He was an all-state point guard. and he went to SMU on a scholarship to play basketball. He's probably 5'8". You know, and when I'm talking about West Texas, I'm talking about where there's 48 people that live in the county. You know, out near Guthrie.
And only one guy, under 5'10".
Yeah, and they're all related, you know. And so, anyway, he's got such a storied history. He helped start the Dallas Chaparrals, which was the ABA team back in the 60s. Wow. Yeah. You know, before there were 2 conferences. I don't know how they do it now because I don't pay any attention to them. But anyway, I met Max in 1984 or 83. I took him a bunch of fish over to a place that he rounded up some big bass for him at a place over near Tyler, Texas, and stocked them in his lake. And I've been knowing him and friends with him since then. Well, he and his bride just bought a place not far, probably from Blair's place in Poetry. And he's got about a 2.5 or 3 acre pond that he wants to renovate and turn it great. There's Dave Weber. Dave's outside of Kansas City. Let's see here. Chuck Brinkman, he's from Missouri. He missed a couple of weeks. Good to be listening again. Where in the heck you been? Fishing?
Do you take roll?
I do. I'm taking.
You take roll?
I do. You got to raise your hand if you're here. Philip Benefield, Jacob West. Jay? You know Jacob.
Yeah,
Jacob was at the
Jacob.
Institute.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jacob's checking in. He's actually the one. When you hold this mug up, Jacob's yelling into the camera. It knows how to keep hot things hot and cold things cold.
That's what it does.
And don't know how it does. Yeah, you guys look like you've been in the cold. John Funk's telling us that from Michigan. It's probably minus 840 degrees where he is.
Well, I came from Seguin, Texas.
Yeah,
today.
so down around, yeah.
And it was 10 degrees warmer than when I got here.
Yeah.
6 hours later when the sun was out. So it's cold up here.
Yeah, it's a little chilly for you. It's probably not chilly for guys like in Michigan or New York.
Oh, yeah, they laugh at this.
Yep. Well, but you know what? It was, I think, when I went outside this morning, I took my little granddaughter to school. It was 33 degrees and spitting snow, which we like that. Let's see. Robert Buckaloo says it must be cold there, but Pond Boss Magazine is hot.
Sizzling, yeah.
Tommy Garrett. Let's see there. John Wilson's checking in. John's a very good friend of ours, Aqueduct company up in Ohio. So he's in the pond management business up there. Hey, Terry Dooley, good to see you. And John Funk says, here's one for you. Will channel catfish bite through the ice if they're hungry? And actually, you know what? I actually caught about a 5-pound channel catfish through the ice in upstate New York in 2005. So the answer to that is once.
They still got to eat.
Look at there. There's Danny Mack. Danny wants to know where his bottle is. Danny Mack, you met Danny Mack. He was here. Yeah, Danny Mack's Danny Mack's down in San Antonio tonight.
He's a neighbor.
Yeah, he was on the show with me about a year ago. I feel a little guilty because I hadn't reintroduced him to whiskey.
Oh no, is that what it is? Uh-oh.
Yeah, his wife still wants to whip my butt. John Henry.
He's a big boy. He can handle it.
He is. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
Look at there. Fred Bingaman checking in from Illinois. He's hanging out with his bride, Connie. Connie fell and broke her leg. Not long ago, so she's kind of rehabbing and having to go through that, which that ain't cool. Michael Eric's checking in from Iowa. Look at that. David Kent from Plainview, Texas. What are you doing in Plainview? That ain't your normal hangout spot. Kim Moore, Central Illinois. Mike Cottrell, Palo Pinto County, Texas. Mitchell Morton, I love him. He's with Johnny Foster Lake Management Company. Mitchell's one of the nation's leading fisheries biologists. So if you're over in the Carolina region and you're looking for somebody to help you with pond management, stormwater retention ponds, fishery stuff, check out Mitchell Morton. You can find him right here. You see his name right there. Go ahead and be his friend. Look at that. Wayne Lancaster, Wayne and Josie. I love Wayne and Josie.
20 degrees and 4 inches of snow.
Yeah, and he's hanging out in New Jersey. But, you know, they actually live in Round Rock.
Really?
And yeah, and on their Wednesdays, this is their date night. They have a pond over kind of in Central Texas.
It'd be fun to have snow.
Yeah.
My wife asked me when we came up here, is it going to be snowing? And I said, well, you know what? It is snowing right now. It was last night.
That's right. It was spitting, but it didn't last.
That's Texas snow.
Yep. TJ Chester's checking in from North Cackalack. Jacob West, let the beard grow, Bob. You know what? It does have a little white in it. I'd probably have to curl this. I don't know. You know, my wife. Call Debbie. Oh, never mind. Don't.
Yeah, don't call her.
All right, let's get there. Mark Durham's got the deal. He's hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Terry Dooley's asking, is leeches in and on the bass mouth bad? Is it bad? I'm going to tell you that it's normal. Leeches will suck blood from the fish because that's what they do. And then the fish you just got to generate more blood. Now, the leeches don't last all year. They'll hang on, and then in the wintertime when it gets cold, they'll release. So here's what I'm going to tell you. You don't see this commentary, but I'm going to tell you. Leeches are not necessarily bad, but they're just another parasite. And parasites are sometimes they're symbiotic. But in this case, leeches aren't bad, but they really don't do anything to help the fish. So guess what eats leeches? Shellcrackers, red ear sunfish, chinkapin perch, they call them in Louisiana. So stock some red ear sunfish and you will get rid of those leeches. Looky here, we got John Fuckett. It is a 70-year-old guy watching a 65-year-old youngster. Yeah, listen, you know what? Let's have a conversation about that 70. Dude, you were 5 when I was born, so you were... Never mind.
There's not a big difference, dude.
Yeah.
It's not a big...
Yeah, hey, John, I'm feeling the love, buddy. Okay, Tony Sutton, we're having 10,000 3 to 5 inch copper-nosed bluegill stocked next week in our 20-acre lake with 100 pounds of fatheads. Will late. Okay, maybe long enough to get the food chain going. Where's your lake? That's what I want to know. You know what? If you're stocking that number of fish, late, okay, maybe long enough to get the food chain going to stock the bass, 2 to 3 inch fingerlings. Can we also stock red ear 150? Okay, so here's your answer. Tony, I can't remember. I know you've watched this show before, but I can't remember where you are. But I'm going to tell you, stocking those fish now.
Oklahoma, he says.
Oklahoma? Yeah. Oklahoma. I'll tell you what. What part of Oklahoma? And here's the way I'm going to handle it. If you draw a line east and west to Oklahoma City, south of that line, stocking copper nose, I'm pretty comfortable doing that. Especially if you have some depth in the water. If your lake has got some depth, I'm going to tell you, yeah, you can do that and you'll be just fine. Now, what's not going to happen, they're not going to grow a lot. They're not going to eat a lot between now and about the second week of March. But on the second week of March, I would have, that's 20-acre lake, so you're stocking 500 per acre. With 100 pounds of fatheads, which is about 5 pounds per acre. You know, those are good numbers. About the second or third week of March, I'd go ahead and start feeding the fish. Do that the second week of March, because at that point, north of Interstate 40 in Oklahoma, near Oklahoma City, your water's going to start warming up just enough that those fish will start to feed. And I would do that, and that would really speed the things up. So the question you're asking me, you're going to stock the bass, 2 to 3 inch fingerlings. You know what? Here's what I'm going to tell you. Don't stock 2 to 3 inch fingerlings in March. Oh, wait. He says, late May be long enough to get... Yes, late May will be long enough to get the food chain going. That's a good time to stock 2 to 3 inch fingerlings because those are young of the year fish. So you really want to stock fish that are hatched like in March or April of next year. So the answer to that question is yes. Can we stock red ear 150 an acre? Yes, you can. So you're good to go.
And is that good? That's a good number for that size of a 20-acre lake. That's
a good number. Mm-hmm. That's a good number. And they're 3 to 5 inches. So 3 to 5 inch, 3 inches is about like that. 5 inches is about like that. And so those fish are big enough that 25 or 30% of them will be able to reproduce by the middle or latter part of spring. So I think, yes, you're fine. I think that's a good plan. Todd, hello from Northern Illinois. Ice is forming. Holy cow. Yeah, there's Danny Mac checking in. Chico was there.
Yeah, he was classmates. So,
yeah, that's right. You guys were hanging out together. Mm-hmm. Danny Mac, me too. 10 days into this new decade. What's that? Oh, Bill Corder from Evans, Georgia. Yeah. John Matthews.
Hey, John. What's
hello,
up?
He says, from Kissaskunk, Texas. Better known as Canyon Lake. You know John Matthews.
Canyon. Yeah, I know.
You must have shared
John
this.
real well.
You must have shared this.
Yeah,
all right. David Schneiderman, feels like Saturday morning on AM 13 under the zone. Where's Ken Milam? Ken's at this time of day?
Yeah, Ken's asleep. Ken's about to go to bed. You know that man, he goes to bed really early because he gets up really early.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't think about talking. I should have just rang his button and told him that we were going to be doing this. Hey, on the phone I see Jim Maynard. Jim Maynard's a nurse and his wife's a nurse, and they know my daughter over here, and they live over here in Sherman or near Sherman. Vito Barnes is here. He says, I'm here, teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, Vito, I love
Sensei,
Vito.
man, this is the sensei here, man.
I got to tell you, this is about Vito and his wife. They dated when they were in high school, and they went to school with one of my kids. I think Vito and Crystal are about a year younger than Ty, which means they graduated high school like in 1991. So this must have been like 89 or 90. They were at a party and they were a couple. And they were at my house. It was a birthday party or something. Vito probably remembers this. Maybe he doesn't. I hope he doesn't. But they wanted to have some really fun conversations about couples. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk about fish. So
I know. You do that all the time. You change the subject all the time.
All right. So, Chico, you know what? We've already blown 15 minutes here, and we've answered a couple of questions. So, you started the original Keep Austin Fishing Facebook page.
Bo Reed started it, and I followed with him. He had it for a while and really wasn't doing a lot with it, and he kept telling me, I got this thing, and it's on Facebook, and I've been doing some of the stuff with Facebook, and he said, come on, let's team up, let's get it going, and I could use some help with an admin, and so far so good. It's been really popular, and again, you see we get
let's
a lot of the same fans.
Let's give Bo a little plug.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What does Bo do?
Bo runs Papa Chop's Rod and Reel Repair in Austin, and it's this great. He's got a real. I would call it a boutique service for anglers. A quick turnaround on rod repairs. Really does what he says he's going to do.
So if you break a rod tip or the bearings are starting to grind in a reel,
1 day turnaround.
So you can mail him your stuff, and he'll fix it and send it back to you.
Well, you know what I can tell you, he is very busy from even people in the local Austin area and Central Texas driving in and doing that, but he never turns down the business. But reel repairs, there's nobody better at it. Bo has got the best inventory of spare parts you've ever seen.
Really?
He works on the top stuff and carries the equipment so that he doesn't have to order in most of the time. So if you got Shimano's...
so don't send him a Zebco?
No, well, you can send him Zebco if you want. He's going to send it right back to you.
Yeah, okay.
But, I got to look the number up here, but Papa Chops. Rod and Reel
like
Repair.
P-O-P-P-A, Chops.
P-A-P-A.
P-A-P-A.
Papa Chops.
Chops, okay.
Rod and Reel Repair.
So if you have some equipment you need to fix, check out Papa Chops.
Yeah.
Bo Reed.
I can't remember the number, 512, somebody will give me the number.
Yeah.
You guys check it out.
Tony Sutton is saying, was wondering if those 2 to 3 inch bass would or could eat the red ear fingerlings of the same size, or should I get bigger? No, they won't. As a matter of fact, let me tell you what's going to happen. Tony, when you stock those fish, those largemouth bass are going to be chasing those brand new hatch fathead minnows. Fathead minnows' job in your circumstance is to reproduce consecutively, rolling spawn, which that's what they'll do. They'll have a whole lot of babies, and when they do, the bass are going to be chasing after those. The red ear sunfish are going to head toward plant life, leaf litter. They're going to go find places where they can chase down crunchy insects, snails, crustaceans, baby mussels, whatever they can find that's crunchy, crispy, and they're going to eat that. And so those 2 to 3 inch, whatever they are, red ear sunfish, those bass are not going to eat them. When they can go eat a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch long fathead minnow, that's what they're going to do. Now, they're going to live in a parallel niche, but not necessarily the same niche as those red ear sunfish do. So don't worry about it. And I'll tell you what, let me even put your mind at ease. You're going to put 150 per acre. Even if you have 90% attrition, you've still got 15 red ear that grow to adulthood. And here's something that's real important. As goes the habitat, so goes what lives in it. You guys that watch this show have heard me say that over and over. So if you've got the right kind of habitat for those red ear sunfish, there'll be enough of them, even if 90% of them did get eaten, which they won't, you'd still have enough adults that could be able to breed and reproduce to kind of sustain the population and build the population. So don't worry about some of those getting eaten. It would not be that big a deal. Chuck Brinkman still throwing out MVP and 400 grower. Obviously, the feed frenzy has slowed down. Yes, it has. Yeah, your water's getting cool. Over there out west of St. Louis, Missouri, Chuck, you're going to start seeing ice. Yeah. Would I be better off throwing a sinking feed during winter? Definitely want the same feed quality, though. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you, here's what I'm going to tell you. Chuck, you've loyally, faithfully fed Aquamax MVP all year long. Your fish relative weights exceed 120%. They're going into the winter healthy.
Yeah.
Now, the odds of them eating feed off the bottom is pretty low. So when you get ice up and you've got ice 4 or 5 inches thick, I just stop feeding. And it's not going to hurt you because as the fish go through the winter under the ice, they're going to metabolize their fat more so than their flesh. So whenever, they're not going to metabolize their muscles just to keep their metabolism rate going. And when it gets cold, their metabolism rate slows down anyway. So it's not going to be a big calorie burn for them. And you're going to be in good shape coming out of the winter into the spring. So after ice off, then start introducing that MVP again or 400 or whatever that you're doing.
So do you think it's a waste? Is that not really
feeding?
Yeah, they're just not going to consume that. Really.
Yes.
They slow down that much.
Yes, they do. They slow down. So feeding the sinking feed. Now, if you had a bunch of yellow perch or you had channel catfish, then I'd tell you sinking feed would make good sense. But if they're going to feed, they would still feed all that MVP as long as your water's open, because that MVP 400, 500, or 600 Purina fish foods is going to waterlog and then slowly cascade down, sink slowly through the water column, and they'll catch it as it falls, even though they're sluggish. And then when it hits the bottom, it'll still kind of bounce around a little bit with the current. They won't just lay flat on the bottom until it gets totally saturated and it gets heavy enough that it will sink. So here's that was a long-winded answer. Mm-hmm. Let me give you the simple answer about sinking feed. No.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, Dion Myers, he's got the deal. You guys remember the deal. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Click like, share this to your timeline. You're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat. He's got a Bob Lusk Outdoors hat. Pond Boss hat.
Oh, is it different?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I need to get you it. There's a Pond Boss hat right there. And a Pond Boss mug. Jacob helped me with it. That knows how to keep hot. Oh, I can hear the ocean. Keep hot things hot, cold things cold. $35 a year, folks. Pond Boss Magazine subscription. This is the economy that fuels what we can do. With our sponsorships from Purina Mills, Easy Docks of Texas, David Schneiderman, and Texas Hunter Products. Now, spend some time on those websites, especially like Texas Hunter Products. Not only do they have great fish feeders, they've got deer blinds, they've got road feeders, they got some new products coming. So don't just go there once and look. Keep looking because they're getting ready to introduce some more lines of products that I can't talk about. And there's reasons I can't talk about it because I don't know.
Well, they haven't told you anything. Yeah, that's a really good reason.
They've told me there's new products coming.
Yes. Talk about them, please.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's it. Dion Myers got it. Jeff Thompson, when the pond boss is managing a pond, what test on the water do you perform annually? I'll tell you what, Jeff, I'm glad you asked that question. First, the most important thing about water chemistry is alkalinity. Alkalinity is a fundamental measurement. Total alkalinity is a measurement of calcium carbonate. And calcium carbonate, from a mineral standpoint, is the primary building block for pretty much all creatures in water. I'm sitting there looking at Danny Max. I have both hats. Be jealous.
I am.
So the alkalinity is the big deal. Now, everybody says, well, why don't we measure oxygen and why don't we measure pH? Oxygen is fleeting. It changes minute by minute, day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment. There'll be less oxygen at daylight than there is at dark. So oxygen only tells you something for that moment. pH is just a measure of the acidity and basicity. It doesn't really tell you anything other than the pH is whatever it is. Now, of course, pH of 7 is neutral, but fish and most aquatic creatures, plants, animals, crustaceans, they prefer pH somewhere between 6 and 8, but can tolerate higher and lower depending on that species. You won't see chain pickerel living in pH water of 8.0, and you won't see Cara living in water that's any less than about 7.0. And so the different species have different tolerances. But here's the direct answer to your question. You want to know the alkalinity. You want to know the pH because it gives you a clue as to what else to look for. The pH doesn't give you information. It just says, you know what, you need to be looking at something else. But the alkalinity is the backbone of water chemistry. Now, here's the way what I'm going to tell you about water chemistry. Look at it at least once a year. If you think there's issues, look at it twice a year. If you really want to pay attention to it, look at it quarterly until you pick up some patterns. Now, I love to use the Soil Sciences Lab at Texas A&M University and do the $40 test because they test all kinds of different things, different parameters. They test several metals. They test minerals. They're checking pH. They're checking alkalinity and hardness.
Yeah, that was one thing that I took from the class is that there's way more than just checking pH.
Yes.
When you think about it like that, and that balance is there's so many other factors that come along with it. And that test kit was actually really interesting to see alkalinity testing and how you guys actually go and do it.
Yeah, and we did some of that. Now, you know what? Yeah. One of my favorite memories with you, Chico, is when you and I and Max and Phil Spencer. That was great. Yeah, Lake Buchanan down. And there's a chain of lakes on the Colorado River. They call them the Highland Lakes, right?
Yeah.
And Buchanan is the top lake on the Colorado River.
Yeah.
And it feeds into Inks Lake, and then it goes to Marble Falls, and then it goes on down to like LBJ, Lake Travis, and then goes on Town Lake, Lady Bird. I don't know all those dead.
It was
lakes.
An epic day. I was on a boat. Wait, let me get this. I'm the only guy that's not a guide. Bob, I don't know if you're a guide.
No, I'm not a guide.
So you and I are not a guide, but we fished.
I don't know how to fish.
But it was amazing to go out with these guys that did it all the time. And Ken Milam had not really actually been fishing for years. And we all got on the boat and really had a day ripping out beautiful stripers.
That's right.
And it was, we actually think that we pulled at least one lake record out that day. And we didn't turn it in.
We didn't weigh it.
We didn't weigh it. We left it for a customer. Max got a customer on that fish 2 or 3 days later. Yeah,
okay.
So it didn't go out. But it was really good to watch. I mean, these legendary guys in the boat fishing and having fun.
And Phil Spencer's a kayak guide from the Colt.
He hadn't done anything like that. That wasn't his world at all.
And the thing that I remember the most about that trip was Lake Buchanan had been through since it's the top lake, that's the lake that suffers the most during a drought because that lake, they got to feed downstream to the Lower Colorado River Authority's regulation of water management, right? And so that lake had been down 30 to 50 feet for over 3 years.
Yeah.
There were some 30 to 40 foot tall willow trees that had grown up in the basin of the lake that had, before that.
About 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, so there was a big drought. And then the floods came in 2015. This had to be around 2015.
Yeah. It was.
And the lake filled up. So as we're driving around the lake, Ken's asking me and Chico's asking me these questions about what do you think is going to happen with the lake?
Right.
And
these willows that we were riding motorcycles through them. This is dirt bikes and dune buggies, and now it's like we got to figure out how we're going to fish this and what is happening here.
Exactly,
and so it did exactly what you said it was.
And so what happened was the lake had reduced its volume probably by 60%, maybe more, 70%, and then so basically what happened was a whole lot of brand new habitat was created, and then the lake flooded, and I remember which I was. For part of that trip, Max was holding court when we were fishing. Ken was holding court when we were catching. Yeah. Phil was along for the ride, but he was asking questions.
Yeah, he was.
And Chico was videoing and taking pictures and things and asking questions. Part of what my role was is what do you think's going to happen? Well, as we were motorboating around the lake, I saw these really cool shallow areas, and I said, okay, guys, here's what I think's going to happen. I think when a lake fills back up and all this brand new habitat's covered, the first thing that's going to happen is the forage base is going to explode. You're going to see more gizzard shad. You're going to see a lot more threadfin shad. You're going to see bluegill reproduce. You're going to see, the red ear, the long ear, the green sunfish, all these different fish. And this happens in your ponds, guys. When you do go through a drought and you get new habitat to form, when the fish are going to adjust their numbers to that volume and size of the pond. And then when it expands again, especially if it does it quickly, you're going to see an explosion of forage fish. And then the state of Texas came in and stocked a bunch of the Sherrilunker bass. So here we are now 5 years later.
Florida strains.
So Florida strain bass, yep. And which they don't stock them unless they're about 97% pure Florida.
Well, they're good fish.
So now here we are 5 years later, and what's the tournament scene like on that lake now?
Lights out. It is now that one of these lakes where everybody's got to make a stop there. Some of them are doing 2 stops a season on Buchanan, and it's fishing that well. It's like 3 different lakes. There's so much on that, but it really helped the economy. It really helped all of the sport fishing up there. It really never affected the striper fishing. We were always still able to get on stripers.
Yeah.
Because they're in the same place. They're on the bottom of the lake.
And they like open water.
They like the big water.
So, they just had more open water as the lake expanded.
But what opened up was, miles and miles of shoreline that wasn't there. And with, inside of willows and cover that wasn't there before either. And there's so much of that cover is still there.
Yep.
It really hasn't gone away.
Yeah.
I'm kind of shocked.
Now,
you said a lot of that would die, and it did die in about 4 years. But there's still a lot of stubs and stumps and little thumb-sized things.
Now what happens with the willow trees? That willow trees have got a natural root stimulant. So those root stimulants perpetuate keep the willow trees from dying faster. So let's see here. Michael Eric up here, our good friend up here in Iowa. What kind of structure do red ear sunfish? Red ear sunfish prefer vegetation where snails live. So red ear sunfish, they like to live in the upper part of the water column along the shoreline in vegetation because that's where their food lives. Snails love to eat bushy pondweed, sago pondweed, curly leaf pondweed, coontail. So wherever you find vegetation, that's going to be the kind of habitat that red ear sunfish are looking for. Now, if you don't have a lot of aquatic plants, they're going to be hanging out around brush piles, beaver dams, fallen structure, trees like that. That's where they want to be because that's where their food lives. Let's see here. So look at there. There's Wyatt checking in. Wyatt lives outside of Denver, and he's got property near Abilene. He's got the deal. There's Dustin Crawley. Tony Sutton, I know we talked a while back, but would you still recommend 50% F1s and 25% of Northerns and Floridas? Yes, I would, especially near Oklahoma City. Now, here's why. Florida strain bass prefer Florida.
Yeah, it's cold.
They like warm.
I was gonna say so that's good for them.
Oklahoma City?
Yeah,
not necessarily. So what happens with Florida bass? I'm going to tell you this: when the water, they can sustain in cool water or cold water, but what they don't like is how fast it gets there. So if the water temperature is 55 today and 33 day after tomorrow, that's hard on Florida bass. That's going to hurt them. F1's not so much. Northerns, they don't care. So one thing I've learned is that bass with Florida genetics can actually live under ice better than they can in the corridor from about Oklahoma City to Waco. If you look at that corridor, we don't get ice very often, which means our water temperatures can get down into the low 30s, and that's hard on Florida bass. Where, like Lincoln, Nebraska, they're going to be frozen up pretty quick. And when that happens, their water at the bottom is 39 or 40 degrees. Those Floridas or F1s or FXs, they can handle that.
Anaerobic metabolism.
Well, they slow down, but what they don't see is that rapid temperature rise and fall. That's what's hard on Florida strain bass. So, Tony, to answer your question, I do like to mix up the gene pool. And how many per acre for good numbers of 4 to 6 pounders with an oh, Lord, you had to throw that out there, didn't you? Oh, my. So he's saying how many 4 to 6 pounders? Okay, and how many per acre for good number? Oh, okay. I thought you were asking how many 4 to 6 pounders should I stock? Should I stock the fingerlings and stock 4 to 6 pounders? No, don't. And how many per... Okay, you know what? All right, we're going to do a little math. For you guys, okay, let me go this route. Let's say you had world champion AKC black lab male bred with a world champion AKC female black lab. She has 8 puppies. How many of those puppies are great?
One.
How
Maybe.
many? Yep. How many runts?
At least one.
So even though they're genetically superior, then you're still going to have that differentiation. Now, of course, when those bass spawn, you can throw half of them in the trash because half of them are boys. And those boys are not going to get any bigger than 1.25 pounds, 1.5 pounds. It's just for a handful of them. So when you stock that 50, I think the number was 50 per acre. I don't remember. That's just to make the number easy. 100 per acre. If you stock 100 per acre, then 50 of those are boys, 50 are girls. You can throw 50 in the trash. Of those other 50, there's only going to be a certain percentage of those that will have the propensity, if they have the ability or if they have the opportunity and the food chain. So out of that 50 females, there's probably 10, 20% of them, 15, 30% of them that will have the propensity, given the opportunity, to hit to that 4 to 6 pound range in about year 3. And so it turns into a numbers game, which is why the very first fish you stock in a pond or a lake, those fish are going to have the very best chance of hitting double digits years down the road, 6, 7, 8 years down, whenever it is, And so I've actually been doing some work with stocking even more bass than that, but planning on culling early just to play the numbers game so we can get those percentages of bigger fish. So how many per acre for good numbers of 4 to 6 pounders? I'm going to take at least 100 per acre. And I'm gonna pitch this out there.
Yeah.
200 per acre gives you 100 girls, of which out of those 100 girls, there's 25 or 30 of them that will have the propensity given the opportunity. But the problem with 200 per acre is now you've got
competition of all those mid-sizers that are taking everything.
That's it. So you've got to do a little culling after 18 months to the third year.
It's the biggest problem with lake management that we as anglers need to deal with.
Exactly.
Is. If you want to know how to make your lake better, start taking some of those fish out.
Now in a brand new lake like what we're talking about here, unless we have a conversation, I'm going to tell you the general rule is do not start harvesting bass until after year 3. Because what you want to do is those originally stocked fish, you want to give them the opportunity to grow as fast as they can, to get as big as they can quickly. And the fish you're going to cull are the underperformers of those originally stocked fish and their babies. Because when they start having babies, that's when the numbers start to get skewed and they really start wiping out the bait fish. And so that's the way that game works. And that's why I've taken probably 10 lakes in the last 5 or 6 years and overstocked with bass in the beginning just to see what happens. And so far, out of 10 lakes, 9 of them have performed kind of like I'd hoped, which, with those 30% of the females, which is about 30 bass out of 200, really excel. They're actually helping us cull bass in those circumstances. Now, I think
when do you hit the point of no return or the diminishing returns on numbers or the size of a lake? Because there's a certain size of a lake where you go, okay, that doesn't even really matter.
How big of a lake? Is that what you're asking me? You know what? If you really want to grow some reasonable numbers of big bass, it needs to be 3 acres or bigger. It really does. I mean, I've shocked up 12-pound bass in a 3-acre pond with just a handful of other bass that are in that 5 to 6 pound class. Right. But, bigger water works better for bigger bass. But, and here's the deal. A 10-acre lake is easier to manage than say, a 40-acre lake. A 10-acre lake is almost like driving a Maserati compared to a 50-acre lake that's a freight train locomotive. It's really hard to slow down and turn a locomotive, but that Maserati, you can stop on a dime and spin that sucker around. So 10 acres is pretty good. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll on down here. Terry Dooley, I got kicked off again. Have bass with leeches in and around their mouth is something you need to address. No, stock red ear sunfish. Jeff, Terry, stock some red ear sunfish. They'll eat the leeches, decrease their numbers. the leeches are going to turn loose of those bass at some point in the winter. Jeff Wall in Central Illinois in the spring, I'm going to put dye in the pond. Is there a chemical that I can put in to control moss and weeds that you like? Well, in Central, most of the herbicides, you use the herbicides when the weeds are present. So there's really not a preemptive strike against vegetation. And personally, I like aquatic plants. I like native aquatic plants that live in your region. Now I see aquatic plants as a key component of the environment, of the habitat. Now the problem happens because they grow, and they're going to grow in areas you don't want them to, and the mass is going to increase, and pretty soon you're getting, throwing out a crankbait, and you're jerking back 14-foot long strand of bushy pondweed, and it irritates everybody. So what I'm going to tell you, as long as you don't have more than about 15% of the surface area covered in native plants, you're good to go. So when you put the dye in a pond, what that does, dye blocks sunlight penetration, keeping UV rays from hitting the pond bottom, and it prevents the growth of aquatic plants. But it also prevents the growth of the base of the food chain. So if you're going to use a dye, do it now. You want it to dissipate before the fish spawn. Because when the fish spawn, those baby fish with little bitty tiny mouths, not much bigger than the head of a pin, they need a food chain. And if you're blocking the sunlight out of the water, then you're diminishing the food chain, which means you're going to diminish survival rates of your baby fish. All these alerts keep popping up. I joined Parler the other day.
I did too.
Oh my gosh.
It's busy, isn't it?
I'm getting so many alerts.
We've got to do something with Parler. We've got to do something over there.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering about that.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
So I would tell you, if you're going to use dye, do it when you can manage it. That's kind of a general statement. Let me make that more specific. I just lost my place here. I'm going to scroll down here.
Have a good reason, I guess, right?
Yeah, so when people use dye, they put it in because the primary function is to diminish sunlight penetration and put off plant growth. Mm-hmm. So what I would say, if you want to do that in January and have the dye in there and then let it fade out by about the end of March, that's okay, because that's about the time the water starts warming up enough that you can have a plankton bloom, and you can minimize the risk of filamentous algae, and if you got coontail that's starting to grow, you can help manage that or minimize the risk of it. But I'd be picky about not letting the dye linger on into the spring.
You need the vegetation. You need that to get.
Yeah, I really, I was raised in the aquaculture industry, mm-hmm. and when you're on a fish farm, you don't need any plants.
No, that's right.
Because you're growing one species of fish. Yeah, but out here when we have multiple sizes of different species of fish with different size ranges, that aquatic plant life. I mean, when you've got a spawning bed for bluegill, and they have a 14.2 gazillion, whatever, how many of that is?
They got a lot of places.
Babies.
Yeah.
Once they come off that spawning bed, they need a place they can go live. Because listen to this, you guys are going to love this. When a baby fish is first hatched, I want to meet the graduate student, Chico, that figured this out. But when baby bluegills or baby bass hatched, you don't
have microscopes that small. Okay. All right, I got to hear it.
When baby fish are first hatched, they're about 12,000 per pound.
All right.
Raise your hand if you did that
12
count.
grand.
Yeah, 12,000 per pound. If you can keep a bluegill alive for 45 days, they're 30 per pound, which means they're about that big after 30 days. So they go from that big to this big after 45 days. Mm-hmm. And then they become a significant function of the food chain. They're more than a nugget. They're a morsel. So when you got to have places they can hide and feed and graze. And that's, when we were riding around that boat in Buchanan, what I was seeing was all these areas that were flooded where I knew bluegills were going to hatch. And then I saw the underneath sides of leaves of terrestrial plants that were covered up in periphyte and bacterial colonies growing on rocks. I thought, oh my gosh, that is stellar food for these brand new hatched fish. So you're going to see just a rapid increase, almost exponential increase of bait fish.
And we did.
Yeah.
That's what happened. The first thing you saw was huge and still can drive up on them. Graphing in that lake now is amazing. It'll blow your mind. The bait balls that were coming up, and you didn't see a lot of the big fish. Now you'd see the stripers coming up from the sides, and
but you know what's really cool in that circumstance is those bait fish explode, and then it's almost like that freight train concept. You know, the game fish, they reproduce, and then their babies figure it out, and those existing this is cool. This is cool. You guys will like this. The game fish that were there had been programmed, conditioned, accustomed to that environment before the drought ended. Right. So during the drought, those fish were living in that environment. Then you throw 30 feet of water on top of them. They're still living in that environment. It's just 30 feet farther down underwater.
Yeah, they want to be there, yeah.
Right. So when they come up and spawn, especially largemouth bass and even fish like blue cat, channel catfish, Guadalupe bass, you know, all those fish, when they come up shallow and they begin to reproduce, their young of the year are going to be the ones that really have that explosive growth.
That's their home, too.
Yes.
Now.
And so when the state of Texas did the Cheryl Unker program and stocked a bunch of those Florida bass in there, those are going to be the fish in the next 4 to 5 years where you're going to start seeing the potential for a state record coming out of a lake like Buchanan.
So now we're in that 6th year.
Yeah, it takes about 7 years.
So yeah, we're a year away, and I think that's playing out right now.
Okay.
That really is playing out. And you know, Travis is in the same boat. Not quite as drastic
because it dropped like 50
or as
feet.
large as Buchanan, but it did go through some of the same, and you know, a lot of what you're talking about is almost the same thing. Except for there's a lot more Guadalupe bass that were competing for that new food.
Bingo. That's right.
And that kind of changed things, and they got very prolific. They're everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? The thing about those bass I'm going to be intrigued. I wish I could study the data a little bit, because when you got those Guadalupe bass, which is the Texas State bass, and they get to be, what, 1.5 pounds? You know, 1.5 pound bass is a perfect meal for a 7-pound bass. Yeah. So when those numbers of big bass expand, Guadalupe bass become a prime source of food for those.
There's so many of them. Really,
are they that way in Buchanan?
No, not as bad in
but
Buchanan.
It's like it is in Lake Travis?
Yeah,
okay.
Mainly Travis. But Travis, they were a lot more established before.
Okay. Holy cow. I just looked on there. I got stuff on my sweater. My wife's...
Buchanan starts to get away a little bit farther away from the zone where you find...
Okay. All right. So Danny Mack said, did you make some Buchanan lobster, layers of striper, and seasoned to red color mayo?
I've had it with mayo. It's really good. I mean, that's kind of one of my tricks. Daniel, I put chili in my mayo.
What?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Tony Sutton says, sorry for so many questions. Would you also stock thread fins with the bass and red hair, or wait till next spring? Wait till the spring. Threadfin shad, I promise you, Tony, in Oklahoma City, threadfins are going to die. Their lower lethal is 42 degrees, and if you're not there right now, you will be. I mean, by the time Santa Claus shows up in a few days, threadfins would be dying. Mm-hmm. So now I'm gonna say that I wouldn't even put threadfins in next spring. If you want to do threadfins, I'm not opposed to that, but know that in Oklahoma City or north of Interstate 40, they're going to die every year. Which, if you know that and you still want to stock them, that's okay with me. But they're such prolific reproduction artists that they can establish a population just within about 60 or 90 days. Mm-hmm. But here's what you need to do. If you're going to do that in the spring of the year, after your bass are at least 10 to 12 inches long. So don't do it in 2021, do it in 2022. Because at that point, then what you're going to do is you're going to fill an empty niche. And that niche is going to be open water, fertile water, and stock the thread fins, stock adult thread fins, which will be April or May of 2022. That's what you want to do. Send me a check for all this great advice.
Yes, invoice them.
So, in thread fins, you know,
this is stuff people pay for.
I know. I get paid for it all the time. But you know what? I love these guys. We got 43 people watching, and at the peak, I saw like 60. So some have bailed out, but some are still hanging out. Let's see here. Been Bill Russell showed up. Better late than never. I'd rather you be here than ever. Okay, so I see some conversations going on between Tony and Terry, and so these guys are having a conversation around us. That's cool.
Good,
I love that.
Good.
There we go.
You got a great community, man.
There we go. It is. Danny Mac, cannas for nearshore. Yeah, that's good. Now the thing about planting peripheral aquatic plants, and Danny Mac, you're okay because where you are, your pond is small. You're near San Antonio. You can keep it full. But like a lake like Buchanan, or if you have a lake where the water fluctuates, level goes up and down, then trying to plant something is not always helpful. I do like to use bog plants like arrowhead, cannas, Louisiana iris, stuff like that. Let's see here.
And Daniel, I want to take you up on that. Let's go catch some of those. He wants to get me out on his pond and we'll go fishing.
Yeah, you're not that far from him. And you guys, come by and catch us a big 3-year-old bluegills, always fed. See, there you go. You just got a free invite. Mark Dyer, too bad not all states allow Florida strain bass. That's absolutely true. So one of the things you need to be careful about is to be sure that you don't stock fish that aren't legal. Or stock, let me say it this way. That's a double negative. Stock fish that are legal. And frankly, you really don't want pure strain Florida bass in Kentucky or Iowa. Now I'm less opposed to stocking fish with Florida genetics in areas that ice up because I do think that they'll make it. But the problem is those fish have been. You don't see any alligators in Alaska.
Yeah, they're southern,
and there ain't no polar bears in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And there's reasons for that. So I'm not a big fan of taking fish from that region way over there and hauling it to this region way over here. That doesn't make sense because they can't thrive in those environments. Now, just because an F1 might live well or live in Iowa doesn't mean you have to do it or you should do it because you're going to be missing a lot of the growing time that those fish need. They don't like it cold. It's just like you're not going to bring yellow perch to Seguin. Yeah. They're not going to live in Seguin.
And they're going to breed slower, and if they do, it's going to be babies that they're the very same as them.
Yeah, and it's not that yellow perch won't live in Lake McQueenie. Yeah. They will live in Lake McQueenie. They're just not going to get much bigger than 6 inches, so what's the point? Right. All right, so let's see here. Robert McDonald.
People do it a lot, too. We'll bring in other fish.
Yes.
Thinking they're going to have big fish.
Exactly, which doesn't work that way. So Robert McDonald, would F1 tiger bass do well in the climate of southern New Jersey? I'm going to tell you this, Robert McDonald from the southern New Jersey. I think the Atlantic seaboard that's influenced by the climate of the ocean, that those fish would do better there than if you went another 200 miles inland, where the temperature's like Pennsylvania, forget it. They're not going to do anything in Pennsylvania. They're not going to do very well in western North Carolina or West Virginia. They're just not going to. But as long as your climate is fairly mild, then you're going to stand a better chance of getting good results. It's already 7:23. I want to say thank you to Texas Hunter Products, Karina Mills,
wow.
And Easy Dog. Man, we've been rocking and rolling here. Yeah. So there's your answer for that. And hey, you know what? I'm just wrapping up the January-February issue of Palm Moss Magazine. $35 a year. Now, if you guys, we only had one. I can't get this. Last week I told the guys, if you'll buy 2 subscriptions, we'll comp one. One guy did that.
Mm-hmm. Really?
That's all. One person did that. But I'm going to make that offer again.
Well, share this out, folks.
Yeah,
share this out to people.
If you will buy 2 gift subscriptions to give to somebody, I will comp yours for 1 year. Now put that in the comment section when you're ready to go. Let's see here, Danny Mac. I try to use it to control my summertime bloom. Pea green. Okay, I got that. Bruce Candelo's checking in. Robert Earl Woodward. Have you ever seen his videos?
No.
Dude, I feel like I've known him forever and we've never met. He's the guy that feeds the bass off of this dock and he catches like this 48-pound bass and he picks it up so the whole world can see it. Which has the best food.
I have. Yes, I have.
Yeah, that guy, he's a legend. Robert Earl Woodward watching this show. We've made the big time.
Wow, that's cool.
Really cool. Holy cow! I'm kind of getting it here.
You're the pond boss, dude.
Yeah,
You're the pond boss.
It's working out.
Yeah, it's working.
So Robert Earl Woodward says, which has the best food value per pound for bass per pound? Toughies or shiners? Toughies are fathead minnows. That's what they call them in the industry. Toughies or shiners. Toughies or shiners. Which are the best? They're the same. You know, fathead minnows toughies have just a slight edge in protein content because they have a little bit less fat than shiners do. You know, shiners have got, the way shiners grow is they've got a little bit more fat content. Even though, now people don't really realize this, golden shiners are predator fish limited by their mouth size. So they have a tendency to store a little bit different types of fat than fathead minnows. Fathead minnows are opportunistic feeders, so they're going to be eating whatever they can get. They'd rather eat meat, but they don't have to. They'll eat vegetation, they'll eat bacteria, they'll eat periphyton. So the answer to that is toughies or fathead minnows have just a small percentage better food value in protein. So holy cow, it's 7:26. All right. So let's see. Troy Seal, great episode. Sweet. That's a lot of checks. Danny Mac says, Bruce, Bob, it's unusual for you to have a guest that's better looking than you. Than what guest?
Oh God. Well, I'm a year younger. I guess I'm younger. That's it.
Yeah, and way smarter. Yeah. You know, way more experiences. And
this guy's smart one.
He's got a pretty cool hat. And of course now Bruce is one of the prettiest guys on the planet. Oh wait,
probably is.
No wait, I didn't say that. Handsomest guys on the planet. Plus he makes a pretty mean old fashioned.
You can call guys pretty now. You should see the stuff I've been seeing.
Yeah. You know what?
Are you kidding me?
So Bruce, the stars aligned, and looking over my shoulder back out here toward the western sky, there's a little sliver of a moon, and that's what it took for Chico to show up. Yeah. And by the way, Chico's here. The reason Chico is here is we're going to talk about audio podcasts, video podcasts. The thing I love about this Facebook venue is we can interact with everybody. Yeah. People can ask questions, we can answer it. But you know what I don't like is Facebook won't let you build an audience. You got to write them a freaking check, or their algorithms are going to keep the audience limited.
Or archive the stuff. There's nowhere for it to land.
Yes, which we do some of that, which we archive all these.
He's got a ton of content.
Who? Me?
You have a lot of content.
Yeah, I do. One of these things is I've just been persistent.
Yeah.
You know, and we store it all on YouTube, which you can click on. You can find all these videos through the Pond Boss website. But Chico is here for the next few days. We're going to be looking at content and trying to put together some more professional and advanced content. Some of it will be pay-per-view, 35 cents a view or whatever, $5.
Some subscription stuff, probably.
Yeah, we're going to get some of that.
But you have that audience that needs that level
and
minutia.
But it's real important to me to get this content out there because I truly believe my calling is to help people be better stewards of their land and water. So I've got 40 plus years of doing this.
You helped me, brother. You really did. Well, I've learned so much from you.
And if we don't salvage it, save it, use it, then when I die, where's it going to go? So we're going to try to put some things together. Some of it will be free. Some of it won't. But that's because I'm a capitalist. Aren't you?
Yeah, well, we got to eat. We got to eat.
Yeah, well, I used to tell people the kids need shoes.
Yeah, we do.
I got 12 grandkids.
But you're giving this stuff away right here.
$35 a year.
The menus are worth it.
Yeah.
$35.
Yeah. The recipe. That's it. Yeah. That's right. Let's see here. Tony says the reason I asked about the thread fins was the lake used to have a good population of them before it was reclaimed. That's what I meant. Spring. Yeah. You got it. That's right. You bet. Yeah. And Tony says the check is in the mail. I'll be looking for it. You can also send, also send red wine.
Yes.
Chico, we're about to wrap up. There's Ron Arduin.
Great show.
Ben Cascley, Bob, expand on fisheries management in New York State. Woo! I'm going to run out of time. I got 1 minute. Ben, I'm going to tell you this. Born, raised in Texas. I love Texas. If somebody made me, if they came to me and said, Bob, you can't live in Texas anymore, where would you go? I would, honest to gosh, look at New York State. Because you've got cold water fisheries, cool water fisheries, Finger Lakes, Great Lakes, streams, brook trout, rainbow trout, brown trout. You know, you've got cutthroats up there. You've got largemouth bass, hybrid stripers, smallmouth bass. And it's just a wide variety of fisheries. And, you know, the fisheries management in New York State, there's not a lot of people that really know they can, but they should. Talk to Mark Cornwell at SUNY Cobleskill. We're out of time, dude. So I'm going to wrap this up. Jeff Wallen, I enjoy your show through the winter when ice is on and can't enjoy as much. Keep the love of my pond going and wish for spring. Well, hang in there, brother. Nathan Lewicki, stock 3 hammer-handle tiger muskies in a 4-acre pond in St. Louis. I love that. That's good.
Who pushes the
Oh, we're fixing to wrap it up here. Let's see what what Mr. Woodward says. I got to lick my fingers so I can get this dadgum thing to scroll down right. We're fixing to wrap it up.
Jacob, Merry Christmas.
Did Jacob say Merry Christmas?
Merry
We love
Christmas.
Jacob.
Yes, yeah.
I love Jacob.
Merry Christmas, Daniel. All you brothers.
Thank you. That's what I thought. Yep, there you go. Good answer. There you go. Vito says thank you. Great. All right. Bruce is my buddy. Bruce is everybody's buddy. Hey, you big dogs raising those big fish, you guys need to hang out together more. You guys need to collaborate and get the word out. Dan Reasoner, you bet. Merry Christmas. Facebook can delete your presents. Hey, you bet. There we go. Merry Christmas.
No, they can't.
Hey, you know what? I am going to skip next week, and I don't know if I'm going to skip the next week or not, but we'll put a little thing out there. So, hey, you know what? It's been great fun hanging out with you guys. Chico, thanks for spending time, brother.
Thank you.
We're gonna go. I got a bunch of bluegills back in a vat back there. We're gonna go investigate those. We might fillet some of them. They're big enough. They're about 9 or 10 inches long. Some of them. They're only 2 years old. I'm kind of torn about whether we should eat them or release them, but we'll eat a few of them. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll let you know after Christmas when we're going to do this again. So until then, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thanks for hanging out with us. Adios.